It's Lee Partridge here on the Drive Time Show, and now, as promised earlier on, I'm going to be talking to, well, let's get him on now. Please, I'd like to say thank you and welcome to the Right Honourable Sir Mike Penning, Member of Parliament for Hemel Hempstead. Very good evening to you, Mike.
Good evening. It sounds very formal. I'm just Mike, honestly, mate.
Yeah, OK. Well, I wanted to get it right to start with. I'd like to
everybody knows me. I'm just pretty basic. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologise. Just give you a round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Now, once again, thanks for taking the time out. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Shall we start? I'll tell you what, let's start with the national lockdown that we're in at the moment. Now, how did you see that? Did you support that or did you not?
I told the Prime Minister I'd given my word to my constituents that I wouldn't vote for another national lockdown. I thought it was a very blunt instrument when places like us in Decorum and surrounding areas had worked so hard to stay in Tier 1, and the health service had done brilliantly well and the local people had done well. So I told the Prime Minister I couldn't vote for the lockdown, and I didn't. I was one of the 39 that opposed it. I'm not part of any group. I just opposed it on principle. And I've been really, really pleased at the support I've got from my constituents. It was a very difficult decision.
So did you want to see it staying initially, like this lockdown, the second lockdown, did you want it to stay as the in a tier basis?
Well, I saw the tier system actually working. You know, if we look at Hertfordshire as a whole, there are areas of Hertfordshire that were in a very difficult position, and they were spiking, and the amount of people that were being tested obviously meant the more you test people, the more you're going to particularly find the asymptomatic ones, the ones that have got no feeling that they've got the illness. So the more you test, the more you're going to get. But actually what we were doing here in Decorum, with the help of the local authority and the health services, that we were keeping it in Tier 1, and I was quite confident that we could stay in green, which we did. But then I was asked to vote for a national lockdown when I was opposed to a Hertfordshire-wide lockdown. So I'm afraid the decision was quite simple for me.
So we're about to come out of that now. Next week we're going back to the tier system. Everybody, I think it's Thursday, isn't it, where everyone finds out.
So it's going to be a really difficult Thursday, I think. I mean, there are things about coming out of the national lockdown I'm really pleased about. People being able to, hopefully by Christmas, people being able with their loved ones. We have to be very careful, but hopefully we can do that. Sporting events, which this country is a nation of sport. Mm-hmm. And you know, Watford and my team Spurs and my local team. My local team, Hemel Hempstead,
yes.
I'm the honorary president of, we will be able to have crowds in the grounds segregated, where the stewards will be able to do their job, and we can actually do that in my rugby, which I'm passionate about, and my basketball, that we have really good clubs here in my town. We can do that, but at the same time, there's still going to be huge pressures on the leisure industry in particular. So I'm really pleased that gyms are going to reopen, but I'm really worried about what's going to happen to particularly my rural pubs, how they're going to survive, because I understand we'll be able to open pubs, but only if you're having a substantial meal. Well, for some pubs that's just not viable, and I don't know how we're going to survive that in an area which, locally we are in green. We're in one of the lowest levels.
And I totally agree with what you're saying, about the local clubs, the non-league clubs. Hemel, especially great, by the way, just a little plug for them. Great to see they've had a couple of results in the last...
We're just about coming through. Yeah. We've had new manager, a really difficult situation financially because of COVID and having no crowds coming through the gate, and we rely on fans going through the turnstiles. That's the only way little clubs like us survive. And of course we've had a brand new 3G pitch, which we weren't allowed to play on until literally the week the season started. So, huge investment by Dave Boggins, my chairman, nearly £500,000, and we want to see kids and everybody else running around on that pitch as soon as possible.
Yeah, he's done a great job there, Dave, and also Birchie. He's a good man. He's a good man.
He's a local boy. He understands so much about the local community, what it means to be a fan of the club. His brother has been very supportive, Mark, a full-time pro at Queen's Park Rangers. That's been really helpful with us getting them some loan players as well. And as you say, we as yet haven't won on Astro. We've won on conventional pitches that we drew the other night. I thought we was going to get our first win. But I made a commitment with my fans, the local fans, that I wouldn't go to any game until my fans are allowed into that game. My local constituents can go to that match and watch it, and I'll go with them and stand on the terraces.
Good.
Until that happens, I won't go. They don't need me there. They need the coaches, and they need the managers, and they need the players, but they don't need me. And my vice chairman, Kerry Underwood, was raised as similarly, we won't go. But as soon as the fans are in, I'm sure we'll be back.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that another time. So is your gut feeling we're going to come out of the same tier that we went in?
No, I think all the indications are that because we're likely, I don't want this, we're likely to come in as a Hertfordshire-wide tier system, and there are parts of Hertfordshire that are much higher in their ratings than us. We might end up going into tier 2, and I really don't want that. It's better than, for sure, going into tier 3 and better than the lockdown. But at the same time, people want to see their friends and as well as their loved ones. And if you're only allowed to have one-person bubbles or one-group bubbles, that's going to be so hard. But let's wait and see on Thursday. You know, the economy has done remarkably well to survive this, but I'm afraid we're losing jobs here in Hemel, like we're losing them around the country, and we can't afford that.
And there's a big industrial unit with lots of industrial jobs that are up there on the business.
A lot commercial these days. It's really interesting where I don't think jobs are ever going to be the same as they were. I have a really large company, an international company up there that they had lots of desks and lots of people in their offices, and they were looking at buying new offices. But actually, they're telling me they're probably going to get rid of one of their offices, and they're going to allow people to work from home because their productivity levels have actually increased with them working from home remotely. So that's going to change the whole dynamics of the high street, the sandwich bars, all the sorts of things that we understand commercial areas have. And at the same time, we need to try desperately to keep on hold of these jobs.
Yeah, well, no, I know Hemel really well, and the industrial estate, talking about jobs, I mean, that's changed, the dynamics of that have changed so much over the last, since Buncefield.
Buncefield transformed my town in a myriad of different ways, and thank God nobody was killed at Buncefield. Yeah. We had some people who were seriously injured. Our firefighters did a fantastic job. However, it decimated 31,000 people's job places. 31,000 people. We had thousands of people, over 5,000 people out of their homes that weekend. And it's transformed, I think, with the help of my local authority, it's made us much more dynamic. It's made the council say, well, that's the traditional way we've always done it. Is that the right way to go forward? And so until this COVID happened, our unemployment level was less than 3%. Which Hemel's never seen that before. Yeah. And in jobs, not just industrial jobs, as you just alluded to, it's actually, you'll find engineering up there, but you won't find a lot of what you used to know, like Lucas and those sorts of Dexian, those sorts of companies are not based up there anymore. These are high jobs and highly paid jobs in many ways as well.
Because it's a great location, near the M25, near the much the same as Watford. And if I got this right, it always sticks in my head. I think it was the 11th of December 2005, so it's 15 years in a couple of weeks that
I'd been the MP just on 6 months, and I used to be a fireman, and I trained at the refinery where the fuel came from that blew up my town.
Oh, yeah. Well,
there was a lot of conversations with me very early on around the fact, I remember doing Stephen Nolan on Radio 5 in the evening, that first evening, and they said, thank you for coming on, and you're the MP, and what do you think, blah, blah, blah. And I said just a couple of things. And then they brought in the Fire Brigade Union rep, and he was making some comments. And I interrupted him and made a comment. And Stephen Nolan said, yeah, but this guy's an expert, Mr. Penning. What do you know? And the Fire Brigade Union guy came back and said, he's a refinery firefighter.
Well, there you go.
You couldn't make up if you tried, could you?
I want to talk to you about the hospital, Hemel Hospital, because that's been, we've heard lots of things over the years. Likewise with the Watford one, it's gone to, it's gone fro, backwards and forwards about what should happen. Should we have one? Should we have two? Should we have an A&E there and not there? And what's your take on that now? Can the Hemel Hospital, where it is now, can it be developed to have the ability to?
No. So we lost that. We sadly lost that argument many years ago. So we used to have 3 acute hospitals: one in St Albans, one in Hemel, and one in Watford. And I'm the first one to turn around and say that a modern acute hospital is not necessarily we wouldn't be big enough for that. I fully understand that. So what St Albans lost theirs, and then they were told that they could rely on rely on Hemel, and then Hemel was closed, and we was all told we had to rely on the very old, difficult to get to hospital in the middle of Watford. Great if you live in the middle of Watford, but awful if you're coming from the areas that you know so well as us. And they said for many years that we couldn't have a new hospital because we couldn't get the money. So we've managed to get the ministers and the government to come up with the money, and we're near on £550 million, I think a bit more than that now. And they've decided to just rebuild the Watford site. And I understand it's very emotive for Watford, but we're not trying to take your hospital away. What we want to give you is a brand new hospital with us. We've lost our hospital. St Albans has lost theirs. We have clinics, really. We don't have hospitals here now. And we wasn't winning that argument with the trust, and so we've taken them to court, and we're waiting for the judge to rule on the judicial review, I hope, next week.
So where would you see it? In an ideal world, where would you like to see that, Mike?
It needs to be so it's accessible to the communities it serves. And while Watford Hospital serves the community it's serving there, it is certainly not serving my community here. It's certainly not serving the community in Berkhamsted and the St Albans and the surrounding areas, which are growing massively. I mean, we've got 20,000 new homes coming here in the next 15 years. So we have to look forward, not backwards. So anywhere within the triangle situation there, in that triangle between St Albans, Hemel and Watford will be there. The land is available. We know the land's available. Build it on a greenfield site, have a modern acute hospital with the transport links we need. And that's what we'll keep fighting for, because those were fighting here long before I was the MP 20 years ago. Or the candidate here 20 years ago, and that's what they're fighting for now.
I mean, our national health system, and to see how it's reacted this year, people realise how, not just, we always know how important it is, but probably even more so. And there's lots of the jobs that have gone sort of underneath the radar for so many years that have really come to the forefront now.
Well, I think we have to give a shout out to the public sector workers. I mean, the guys have been emptying our bins while this has been going on. The people that have been making the parks clean for us to go to when we're trying to get some fresh air, even during the middle of lockdown when we were trying to get out and about. And I've got two local builders that are on the Army Reserve, and they've been called up, and they've been away for nearly 6 months now, away from home, while they support the NHS in logistics as they move stuff around the country. So this is a community coming together, which has been fantastic, headed up by the NHS. Thank goodness we have an NHS in the way we have it. But that's why I'm so passionate about looking after the public sector workers as well.
How do you get on with other local MPs? I mean, what's your relationship like with Dean Russell from Watford, Daisy Cooper from St Albans?
Well, I was on the door knocking for Dean to get him elected. He's a brand new MP. I try and give him as much advice as possible. I fully respect and understand why he campaigns so hard to keep the hospital in Watford, because politically that's really difficult for him. But he also understands, from my point of view, that I have to try desperately to make sure that my community is served by the NHS properly as well. So we're good mates, and Daisy I know really well. We've worked together on several projects already. I'm joint signature on an EDM that's gone down today. We're particularly interested around the mental health of people, that not just during COVID, but as we look around the country, it's the unseen illness which is out there every day, which is particularly worries me.
And you've got a long history of working within Parliament. You've been a Minister of State for the Armed Forces, State for Justice, for policing, disabled people.
It's a long list of
Northern Ireland State for Transport. So what's next for you? What would be next?
So I was a minister in 7 departments. I have had the honour of being knighted the other year. I'm a Privy Councillor, which I'm enormously proud of, which is basically an advisor to the Queen and to the monarch. Because if I didn't pass my 11 plus and didn't make corporal when I was in the army, that's quite, I think, a remarkable thing that only this country could offer. I don't think there's any other country in the world that you could have the upbringing and the education or lack of education that I had when I was at school, and then rise to, being kneeling in front of your queen while she puts a sword each side of your ears. Well, that's quite an experience. So the Prime Minister, when he came in, he asked me to come back in the government. I very politely declined. This is public information. I've done a lot, and I wanted to dedicate the last whatever years I've got as an MP to my constituency.
Okay.
And I couldn't do some of the things I would like to do, and I'm doing, if I was a minister.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I wish you good luck with that, and all the community of Hemel. I know it really well. Got a lot of friends up there, so keep up the good work. Keep championing their cause for all sorts of different situations. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll chat again, Mike.
No, anytime you wish. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. It's Sir Mike Penning, MP, Member of Parliament for Hemel Hempstead, talking all things hospital. I mean, there's loads more you could talk about, so we'll have to get him back on at some point.